Back when Disney first bought the rights to Star Wars, they announced their plans to create spin-off Star Wars anthology films between the releases of their new trilogy. The first of these anthology films, Rogue One, came out in 2016 to praise and success, while the second anthology film, Solo, which came out in 2018, only a few months after the extremely controversial Episode 8, The Last Jedi, ended up being a disaster, with Solo being the lowest grossing Star Wars film ever, shattering the idea that Star Wars films will always be successful. Solo's failure is based off of several different reasons, all of which culminating in the decision to hold off all further anthology films for the foreseeable future, essentially canceling the newly announced Obi-Wan Kenobi film and possible Boba Fett film. Now, as cool as an Obi-Wan film or a Boba Fett film would be, I think that it would be far more interesting to get an anthology film about characters we don't actually really know about as well. In fact, I feel the reason Rogue One worked out so well was because we got a story about characters we didn't really know, and didn't mess around with any already existing characters, aside from a few token scenes here and there. So then, where would you take an anthology film so that it isn't about an already existing Star Wars main character? Well, I would take the story back to the Old Republic, and tell the tale of Darth Bane, the infamous Sith Lord who initiated the Rule of Two, which would go on for over a millennium and eventually culminate with Darth Sidious and Darth Vader. Now, Darth Bane is already a canon Star Wars character, as he was created by George Lucas himself, and appears as a ghost in the Clone Wars TV show. Now, Bane's story from the old EU, which encompassed 3 novels, is no longer considered to be canon, but that doesn't mean a film about him could not draw a lot of inspiration from these books, as the information we currently have about the canon Bane is rather lacking, and it essentially follows the same story from the books, just a bit more generalized. As for the setting of this movie, I'd place it during the events of the first Darth Bane book, Path of Destruction, with elements of the second book also. So essentially, it would be about the final months of the last Sith War with the Republic, about 1,000 years before the events of the Phantom Menace. It was at this time that a new member of the Sith distinguished himself, speaking out against the current Sith leadership, one that was based on equality, as to combat the hierarchical infighting that had been so common among the ancient Sith, crippling all of their previous efforts to defeat the Republic and the Jedi. This new Sith Brotherhood, led by Lord Khan, had discarded the old title of Darth, along with many other ancient Sith traditions. In Bane's eyes, this made the Sith weaker as a whole. Bane would go on to reclaim many of these ancient Sith traditions, proclaiming himself Darth once more. He also took influence from more progressive ancient Sith lords, like Darth Revan, who believed that the more Sith there were, the less powerful the Sith would be. This would lead Bane to create a philosophy, the Rule of Two, an idea that only 2 Sith Lords could only exist at one given time, a master to embody the power of the dark side of the Force, and an apprentice to crave it. Once an apprentice had learned all he could, he would slay his master, becoming a master himself, and take an apprentice of his own. With this new ideology, Darth Bane set out to destroy the current Sith, using the chaos of the final days of war to wipe out the remaining Sith forces, leaving himself the sole survivor, the last remaining Sith, free to find an apprentice and begin the long chain that would run for 1,000 years, culminating in some of the most powerful Sith Lords of all, Darth Sidious and Darth Vader, who would finally succeed in destroying the Republic and the Jedi. The end of the war with the Sith would lead to the Republic reorganizing itself, ensuring that further problems with Outer Rim worlds would not arise once more, and demilitarizing as well, as they believed the threat of the Sith was truly gone once and for all, as they did not know of the existence of Darth Bane and his shadowy plots to continue on the Sith. Now I feel a movie about Darth Bane would be a great addition to the Star Wars saga, because it would add a lot of background detail that would set up for things in the prequels, such as why there are only 2 Sith and where they came from, along with why the Jedi believed them to be extinct, and why there is no Grand Army of the Republic present until the events of Attack of the Clones, where we then get the new clone army for the Republic. The movie could also reintroduce some old expanded universe characters and concepts as well. Characters like Darth Revan could finally make their way back into canon, along with the history of the Jedi and the Sith. Now, once again, we have to ask ourselves, would Disney or Lucasfilm ever okay a movie like this to be made? And honestly, I don't think so. Anyone who has read the first book knows the story of Darth Bane is just too brutal. It's essentially about a villain. It takes place during a very violent war as well. It doesn't really fit with how Disney and Lucasfilm are trying to present Star Wars as some grand space adventure. Sure, we got away with a pretty gritty movie with Rogue One, but I don't see that being the case with any future Star Wars movies to come. At least not unless Disney and Lucasfilm take a hard look at themselves and realize what the fans really want. In conclusion, this is why I feel a movie about Darth Bane would be the best choice for a new anthology film. Because we don't really need a film about an already established character. We got that with Han Solo, and it kind of really ruined a lot of the mystery that we previously had about the character. Stuff that actually made the character kind of more interesting, because we didn't know where he came from when we first see him in that cantina in episode 4. It's the same with a movie about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, I would love to see Ewan McGregor take on the role again, but I just feel like I'd rather see something we really haven't seen before. Same thing with a Boba Fett film. We already saw young Boba Fett in the Clone Wars TV show, so I don't know how much more we need. Unless you want to actually give us Star Wars 1313, because that would be pretty great. A movie about Darth Bane would take us deep into the heart of the Sith ideology, and bring us to a war unlike one we've ever seen before, pitting Jedi and Sith against each other on a massive scale. It would be new, it would be fresh, and it would be interesting, along with revealing many details that would help fill in some gaps that the prequels presented to us. That's why we need a movie about Darth Bane and the rise of the Rule of Two.